Hi everyone, we are Nerea and Sonia for the Human Evolutionary Biology group of the University of the Basque Country. Today we are going to talk about ancient DNA and forensic analysis. Who does a forensic anthropologist do? I'm pretty sure that all of you have watched TV shows like CSI or Bones. So let's imagine for a moment that human bone remains appear in a crime scenario. Which information do you think that can we obtain by analyzing these human bone remains? Will it be possible to recover DNA from them? First of all, to identify an individual, we need to estimate its sex and age. To correctly estimate sex, we say that pelvis is the key. A female pelvis is, in general, shorter and wider than a male's. As you surely can imagine, these differences are related to pregnancy and labor. Although pelvis is the key, the skull helps as well. Males' skulls present, in general, much more prominent and marked features in comparison to female skulls. For example, the eyebrow region, the chin, or the posterior part of the skull. These differences can be easily recognized if you compare each other.
So now we have the sex, but what about the age? Can we know whether we have an infant or an adult just by looking at the bones?
Yes, of course. We have several methods to estimate age in the skeleton. One of the most reliable ones depends on the fusion of long bones. When we are children, the central part of our bones is separated from both extremes. When the adult bone is completely fused, growth stops. Each bone fuses together at a different age, so that the estimation will depend on whether the bone is fused or not. It's important to understand that this process starts earlier in women than in men. For the reason we girls stop growing a few years earlier than boys, and thus our height is usually smaller. Another reliable method is based on dentition. Do you remember when you started to lose your deciduous teeth? If you go back in time, you will realize that this process used to happen more or less at the same time for all the boys and girls in the class. This is due to the fact that dental development follows a similar pattern in all individuals. In adults, when dental development and bone development are complete, age estimation depends on the closing of skull sutures or age-related changes in the skeleton.
So can we know the cause of the death, again, just by looking at the bones?
Yes, sure. Analyzing bones are a key factor in the determination of the cause of death and its circumstances. For example, we can analyze the marks left by a bullet after impacting the skull. We can interpret also the shooting distance and trajectory, or even the caliber of the weapon used. We can also analyze the diseases present or suffered by the individual during his or her life. More precisely, bone fractures leave visible marks in the skeleton even after death. We can also analyze tuberculosis cases, leprosy, or other infections. In some cases, we found such remarkable cases like this one. This is a disease called ankylosing spondylitis, which is characterized by the complete fusion of several joints. Here we observe that the femur is fused to the pelvis, which in turn is fused to the spinal column. Moreover, the spinal column is also completely fused. So, Sonia, let me ask you a question. Can we obtain any other information from bones?
Yes, of course. We can obtain our own personal genetic footprint, which is DNA. DNA is found in the nucleus of every cell in our body, and it has a double helix form. In addition, it is formed by 4 different letters that we call nucleotidic bases. These are adenine, cytosine, thymine, and guanine. In total, we have around 3 billion base pairs in every DNA molecule of our body. In addition, we can find another type of DNA inside our cells, which is mitochondrial DNA. As its name indicates, we can find it inside mitochondria. In contrast to nuclear DNA, this mitochondrial DNA is much shorter, it only contains around 16,000 base pairs, and it has a circular form. What makes it very special is that as we have a lot of mitochondria inside our cells, we can recover a lot of copies of this DNA, which makes it easier to work with, especially in ancient remains.
Interesting. So it is possible to recover this DNA from bones?
Yeah, sure. The DNA that we obtain from old bones or even bones of extinct individuals is what we call ancient DNA. Recovering it is a very complex process because when an individual dies, his or her tissues starts degrading together with its DNA. In addition, these bones can be affected by physicochemical factors of the environment, which trigger this degradation even more. In addition, to make it more difficult, this DNA is susceptible of being contaminated by all the persons that touch the bone from its recovery in the ground until we bring it to the laboratory. For this reason, DNA extraction has to take place in an isolated room and researchers have to wear a whole body costume.
And after DNA extraction, which information can we obtain from it?
So nowadays, Nerea, we have a new kind of techniques which are called next-generation sequencing. Very briefly, they can be summarized in two steps. First, we need to obtain the exact DNA basis sequence, the letter sequence of small fragments of DNA. And secondly, we need to organize all these small sequences to obtain the complete DNA sequence of our individual, of our sample. Let me show you an example. This is how it looks when we work with a next-generation sequencing example. It looks overwhelming, right? What would you say if I told you that the DNA sequence of just one individual can weigh up to 200 gigabytes? So if you understand, the analysis of such a huge amount of biological data is called what we call bioinformatics. And as you have to understand, we need very powerful computers to analyze it.
Yeah, really overwhelming, but are all these letters relevant?
Look, Nerea, let's compare each other. If we compare your DNA sequence with mine, we will see that they are identical in a 99.9%. The remaining 0.1% is the part that contains the most important information and the one that we researchers try to investigate. These differences are developed during evolution through a process called mutation. Mutations are just small changes in our DNA sequence that are generated at random. However, there are some environmental factors that can trigger their appearance, such as smoking, drinking alcohol, or a prolonged exposure to ultraviolet light.
Which applications has all this?
So it has a lot of applications. Let me show you some of them. First, in paternity tests. In these tests, we study mutations that we inherit both from our father and from our mother. If the mutations of the son and of the daughter do not match the mutations of the presumed father, we have to reject the paternity of this individual. Another application is the study of diseases. It is known that genes OCA1 and OCA2 are involved in the pigmentation process of the skin. However, mutations in these genes can trigger the appearance of diseases such as albinism. Another important application of DNA, ancient DNA and bones is that they teach us a lot about our evolutionary history, because they can give us a lot of information about species that are even extinct, such as Neanderthals. Although, technically, we cannot say that Neanderthals have disappeared completely because every one of us have inherited from a 2 to a 4% of their DNA. We hope that you have enjoyed this presentation. Thank you very much.